So we have an absolutely insane week coming up ahead of us. First, we have the CPI data basically telling us how bad is inflation. Is it getting worse or is it getting better? And that's going to dictate the price of the DXY or the dollar index and what Bitcoin could be doing in the next couple of weeks. The next thing is that we have the merge coming up, slowly creeping up to September 15th, only 3 days away, and we're going to have some insane volatility in the markets because of that. And then to put the cherry on top, Biden and the federal government are also talking about crypto legislation and basically bashing Bitcoin, or maybe they're even praising it. So we have a lot to jump into today, and we're going to jump into all of that. But first, we're going to start with the charts and then break down everything that's been happening in the crypto markets. So welcome back, everyone. It's good to be back. I kind of went off for a couple days, but we're back in the charts. We're going to cover some of the important things that are happening, Bitcoin's pump, the federal government, and then basically what's going to happen with the merge, or what I believe is going to happen. Now, the first and most important thing that I want to talk about is Bitcoin's price. And over the last week, you saw that it had a very nice pump up to the upside. As you can see right here, it basically closed over the last 2 weeks, but we're still kind of down from that resistance of around 25,000. One thing I do want to note is that if you look on the weekly, this has been a very strong reversal zone for Bitcoin right around here. And as we look into a chart later on, you'll see that the Bitcoin realized price is around 21,000. But right here in this range from 19 to basically 17,000, every time Bitcoin has gotten here since the early month of June, it has reversed in this price. So this could be a really good accumulation zone. As we drop down to the daily, I'll kind of talk into that a little bit more. But it's also important to remember what's happening on chain and off the charts. And basically what I mean by that is if we take a quick look at Bitcoin spent output value bands, this is basically tracking what are the whales doing within the market and what are they basically doing with their Bitcoin. Now you can see that whenever this activity goes up, that's bad because these whales are spending their money, or they're putting it out of exchanges. They're putting it into exchanges. Basically, they need to sell off. And when you're looking at this, this is an accumulation of whales and miners. Now, the whales, as you can see, the spike in activity means that they're basically giving or selling their Bitcoin, which is bad. And you can see there's a very large sell pressure in that. Now, there's kind of a lot of theories behind why they're doing this, but again, this could be because they think price is going to drop a little bit lower, even lower than that 17K floor. On top of that, when we think about miners, the reason miners are forced to sell is because that's how they make their profit, right? They mine for Bitcoin and then they hold on to that Bitcoin. The lower the price of Bitcoin gets, the more Bitcoin they have to sell because they still have to keep the doors open. They still have to keep mining. And Bitcoin does cost money to mine. So as the price continues to fall, they are forced to sell out more Bitcoin, and miners are struggling at that point, which could be even more sell pressure coming into the markets. So with all that being said, when we take a look at the daily of what Bitcoin is doing, there's some really big news events coming up that we really need to consider. The first thing is that we have CPI data coming in September 13th. Now, CPI is basically what measures inflation. And as of right now, everybody knows about inflation and everyone knows how important it is. And every single month it kind of lags. So when we're talking about the reference month of August, it actually comes out in September because the Federal Reserve lags 1 month to catch everything. So the CPI data is going to come out September 13th. And depending on how that does, that's going to fluctuate what Bitcoin does because it's going to tell us, is inflation slowing down or is it not? And one really important thing to think about is that when the Fed sees what the inflation is doing, they're also going to have on September 21st their rate hike. Now, as of right now, it looks like they could be rate hiking around 300 to 325 basis points, which for some reason basically just means like 0.3% interest rate hikes. But the higher the interest rate hike, the stronger the dollar gets and the worse off risk assets get, like Ethereum, Bitcoin, and basically stocks and everything along the sorts. Now, one important thing that I want to show you guys here is that when we look at this, the last time that the DXY was at around the price of 120, which is basically the strength of it, was around 2001. And just as of recently, we've kind of broken above this double top and just rallied to the upside. Now, the last time we really rallied like this was back here in around March of 2014. We had this massive rally, and then again, it needed to cool off. And the DXY is very similar to how crypto and stocks work. They can't go up forever. It can't be strong forever. It needs to go through these fluctuation periods. And so what I'm thinking is, since we've had this pump without really any cool off, just like we did over here, if we have really good CPI numbers coming, basically saying inflation is going down, we could see some cool off in the markets, maybe lower interest rate hikes, maybe the Fed not being as hawkish as they have been. And if the DXY starts to go down and the Federal Reserve becomes less hawkish, then we could see a little bit more money flowing into the markets and crypto assets going up. Now, when we do talk about Bitcoin, one important thing that I have marked up here is this blue zone I believe to be the accumulation zone. Again, talking back to that last weekly chart, it's anything below really $20,000, because anytime that price dips into here, if I extend it out to the left, you could see that this is a very good reversal zone. Now, another thing to really consider is that when you're thinking long term, there is a possibility of Bitcoin getting back down to the support of 1750 or 17,500, and a possibility of us even getting down to this accumulation zone of 13,000 for the support, which was again this support back here in the late stages of 2017. But again, if you're taking it for the long haul, you have to remember that this is just a really good fire sale, or kind of like a Black Friday sale, because when you look at the grand scope of things, anything accumulated in between the 20,000 and 13,000 zone, if you're holding for a long term, even saying you bought over here, I mean, you're looking at a very nice rise if we go back to all-time highs, which I'm very confident we do if you're, giving it a time frame of about 5 years. So again, if the CPI data comes out positive and inflation is going down, that's going to be bad for the DXY and good for Bitcoin. And again, with its most recent pump, we always do have to remember that there is a resistance at $25,000. So don't FOMO into this and thinking you're going to miss and the bull market is coming. Because when you look at the macroeconomics and the geopolitical structure, Europe is still going through hyperinflation. There's still the Russia-Ukraine war, and we're even going through our own problems as well. So even if we do get back to these resistance zones, we have to remember that overall macroeconomics are still pushing us and telling us we're in kind of like a bear market and recession. Now, another thing to remember is that the merge is only 3 days away if it goes on track and, it starts to basically actually upgrade September 15th. And one tweet that I thought was really important is here by Crypto Tony. It says, huge week for Ethereum and crypto community with the upcoming merge. These events tend to create more liquidity, basically meaning there's going to be a lot of money pumping in, and Ethereum's price is going to be fluctuating a lot, especially on the shorter time frames. And this liquidity can be used to the whale's advantage to engineer certain moves and looks, basically meaning that you're going to get a lot of short-term traders, a lot of amateur traders trading in this market, and whales are going to take advantage of it to show you patterns that you can find on Google for free or from those $500 Forex courses, and they're going to show you what you want to see, hoping for you to buy in and then rug pull you out as price dips. And that's exactly what I want to warn you guys, is that when we're looking at Ethereum and basically what the merge could bring us, we could be looking at an event where, during the merge or maybe even the day after the merge, we could have a pump in price. Everything went well. Ethereum is basically switching over to proof of stake, which is more energy friendly, which we'll talk about as to why that's important. And then, what we could get is possibly a rise into these highs off of this trend line into these resistance zones of around 2000. Again, a psychological level. And maybe it even breaks above, similar to what the DXY has done. If we look at the DXY, it broke this double top. If we look at Ethereum, we do have kind of a resistance here. Maybe we break above and even get close to $2,500 of a resistance. But again, short term, do you really think that Ethereum is going to continue to pump, continue to gain this liquidity, and continue to gain this traction in such a bad economic or macroeconomic state? I think what we're going to see is a short-term buy-in. Again, the whales engineering a move. We broke past this. A lot of buy stops are going to get triggered at above 2000. And then what's going to happen is an immediate dip where a lot of these whales are going to sell right around here, because it looks like we broke this downtrend line. We broke above the double top. We're going to 2500. A lot of people are going to be betting their money on that short term. And what we could see is a fall down back to these lows and possibly even a little bit lower. But again, just like Bitcoin, I'm going to be waiting for an accumulation zone right around here. Anything honestly below 1,000 or maybe even like 1,100. That's kind of what I'm looking at, mainly because I understand that in the long term, yes, Ethereum is going to do well, but I'm also waiting for a very large dip, because a lot of these short-term traders are going to get killed in the charts, and the whales are going to manipulate the charts to how they want you to see it. Now, kind of shifting away from the charts and a little bit more into the legislation or the important things that are happening with crypto. First off, we obviously know the SEC is enforcing a lot of rules into crypto, and they continue to basically back up their position, and they say that the SEC enforcement chief says we cannot ignore crypto law breaking, basically meaning that they're going to continue to push and hound on these cryptocurrency assets, making sure, are they as securities or are they commodities? And it's going to continue to be a gray area until they figure it out. And really, it's starting to look more like they're going to consider these securities, which again, for the broader altcoins is going to be a bad thing. But when you're looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're kind of more in that like trusted zone by the government, which is really good. And again, a really good reason to stay out of altcoins until there's more clarity in the law. And there's also one really major report talking about climate change and Bitcoin. Basically, yesterday the White House released a major report on the environmental impact of crypto mining. Now, if you really look into crypto mining and basically its competitors or basically anything else that takes up energy, Bitcoin really has absolutely a fraction of energy usage compared to a lot of the other major things, like basically anything. Now, basically what legislation is saying is that they don't want to get rid of crypto, but they do have to work in a more energy efficient way. So this actually does seem like a bad thing at first, but when you think about it, this could actually be a head nod from the government saying that, yes, we do want to work with crypto, we do want to work with Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, but you guys just have to do it in a smarter way. So this is basically the government saying that we long-term accept Bitcoin for what it is, but it should just consider basically collabing with a lot of these energy-friendly motives. So I guess in the long term, short term, this could not be really good for crypto because it could be seen as something very bad. But when you really think about it, cryptocurrency and basically the whole stake, they just want it to be more energy efficient. And with the Ethereum merge, if it goes well, that's going to use up so much less energy from proof of work to proof of stake. And that could show the government that yes, it is possible to basically use less energy to still do what cryptocurrency does, which again, long-term could be a really good thing. But as we wrap up this video, that's everything I have for you guys. Again, be very careful with the Ethereum merge. It's coming out in 3 days. CPI data is also coming out very soon, and this could affect basically how the dollar index reacts, which is again going to affect how Bitcoin and Ethereum and the whole basically risk asset class is going to affect itself as well. And just with the long-term outlook, the government is kind of giving its head nod. The SEC is getting a little bit more involved. We're seeing a little bit more clarity day after day, and eventually we're going to see this bear market end, and you are going to wish that you accumulated at these low prices once we start to see prices rise. So that's everything I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed it, definitely comment and like down below, and make sure to subscribe so you stay up to date on these daily videos. See you guys in the next one. Peace.